hanging out with me for my first video of 2026. This year I decided to set myself a painting challenge, and that challenge is to do one miniature wildlife painting per week between now and the end of the year. So in theory, by the end of 2026 I should have 52 miniature wildlife paintings as kind of a very minimalist nature diary for the year. So I thought today it would be nice to tell you a bit more about that challenge. So I'm gonna go out and have a look for some wildlife inspiration for the next painting in the series. I've done 2 already, which I'll show you a little bit later on. So we're gonna go out and look for some wintry wildlife and then do the 3rd painting a little bit later on. And I thought while we do that, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about why I am doing this challenge, and then I'm gonna tell you some more specifics. So if you would also like to do a similar challenge to this, then you can do. So let's head outside into the cold and look for some lovely wildlife. So part of me just wants to do this just kind of to see if I can, because I have been pursuing a career as an artist now for the past 4 years, and one of my biggest challenges is being consistent. So I'm kind of interested just to see if I could actually see this through for an entire year. There are some fieldfare and redwing over here, I think, in the distance. The other reason for wanting to do this is a bit more specific, and that is that I've been pursuing a career as an artist now for the past 4 years, and I definitely feel like the business side of things is better than it was, and I understand what I'm doing a little bit more now, but I am not currently earning a stable enough income from this for this to be like my sustainable full-time job. So sometimes that means that I need another job alongside my art career, and it's in those times where I find painting just kind of goes out the window a little bit. I've recently just finished a job that I was doing for the past 18 months. It was a really great opportunity to do something that was in conservation, and I got to work with some really nice people, and I loved doing that. But the downside was I just hardly did any painting during the whole of that 18 months, and I don't really like that. Because my business isn't completely financially stable enough for me to just do this and nothing else, then there's a good chance that there's going to be other employment in the future. And I don't want to find myself in a similar position where painting just becomes an afterthought and I don't make any time for it, because I think that really sucks. And I also don't think that I'm the only person to experience that. I feel like as we get busy, we prioritize obviously work and responsibilities, but more often than not we kind of shove aside the things that we enjoy doing because they don't seem important enough. But thinking about it, that just doesn't really seem very sensible to me. I think that spending time doing something that you enjoy and that helps you unwind after a busy day should be a priority, and that being creative and making time for painting should definitely be on your to-do list, and we should be able to make time for it because it's fun. And I don't want to spend all of my time doing work and other things that I have to do and not have any time left over to do things that I actually enjoy. So I'm changing that around this year, and that is where this painting challenge comes in, because I do feel like we've kind of gone off on a tangent there. So let's bring it back to the point. Although I do think that being creative and having that painting time on a regular basis should be a priority, I do completely appreciate that it is really hard to fit into everyday life. I know, I have been there. I went weeks and sometimes even months without painting when I was doing my regular job. So I get that it is not always easy to have sustainable painting practice. And that is why I wanted to do a challenge that was fairly laid back, that seems like it would be achievable regardless of what other job I might be working on at the same time or whatever other responsibilities I might come across. I wanted to make sure that this was a challenge that I would be able to stick to regardless. This year, I want to develop some better painting practices that will help me to be consistent and make better choices. So, when I do have a bit of spare time, instead of doom scrolling through social media, I instead choose to do something a bit more creative. And that is a theme of this challenge. This is all about being consistent, doing something achievable, and doing something fun. So, to get to the guidelines of this challenge, because I feel like rules are a bit too strict for the laid back feel of what we're going for here. The guidelines that I will be sticking to are that the paintings should be of wildlife, they should be a miniature size, and they should be done on a weekly basis. And to be honest, that is kind of it. I am going to talk about the specifics of what I'm going to be doing so you've got a bit more information, but generally speaking, I want this to be pretty open so I have more chance of sticking to it because I'm not going to get bored about really restrictive guidelines. And to me, I think that is as specific as I need to get. So the wildlife that I want to paint, I would like to take my own reference photos of them. If you were going to do something similar, then you absolutely don't need to follow all of these guidelines. This is just something that I would like to do for this. And I really want to take my own photos because I like having that connection to the things that I'm painting. And ideally, I want the photos to have been taken relatively close to the painting being done because I really do want this to be like a long-term nature diary where it's kind of tracking wildlife through the seasons. I was thinking about trying to take the picture the same week as painting, and although I think I will try and do that some of the time, I think that's maybe a little optimistic to think I'll be able to do that every single week, plan to go look for wildlife somewhere fancy and then have the time to do this. I really want to be able to fit this in around other jobs if I need to, so I think that's a bit ambitious. Instead, I think as long as the wildlife has been seen within the month and it is seasonal, so you could realistically still go out and see that kind of nature, I think that's enough. So I want the wildlife to be fairly current, but it doesn't have to be seen like that day. I chose wildlife as the focus for this because it's something that I am really passionate about. And as I mentioned before, like the key things to remember for this challenge is that it should be achievable and it should be fun. So I wanted to make sure that the subject that I was choosing was something that I actually cared about and would really enjoy painting. And wildlife is that for me. Also, choosing wildlife as the subject comes with that extra bonus of encouraging me to go outside. Obviously, that is down to wanting to take my own reference photos, but I think it kind of adds to the feel for this year of wanting to just slow down and enjoy nature, enjoy painting, make sure that I am making time to do things that I enjoy doing. And the fact that I want to paint wildlife on a regular basis does mean that I am going to have to go out and see wildlife on a regular basis, and I think that is an excellent added bonus.
Also, the subject of wildlife is really varied, and that was important for me as well with this challenge because, as mentioned previously, I'm not very good at being consistent. I do get fed up easily of doing the same thing all the time, so I wanted to choose a subject that was varied enough it would keep me interested for the whole year, potentially longer if I like the way that this goes. And with wildlife, although my main focus has been birds recently because that is what I've seen the most of. Later on in the year, as it gets warmer, there's going to be butterflies and bees and flowers and all kinds of different things to paint. So I think that's going to keep me interested throughout the whole project and hopefully mean that I actually stick to this. So, if you are looking to do something similar and you're choosing a category for yourself, I think that choosing something that you really enjoy painting is a good idea. I mean, obviously you can tweak this and do whatever you like when it comes to your own painting challenge. So feel free to completely ignore me. But I think choosing something that you enjoy, that you're gonna be able to be consistent with, is a good option. And also not being super restrictive with your category for your challenge. So don't feel like you need to be really, really specific because you might get bored after a while if you're anything like me. But having something that's fairly open that you can tweak a little through the year to suit how you like to paint and to keep you interested. For me, I think that's the way to go. So, the miniature side of this project, that has come about for two reasons. One is that I absolutely love painting in miniature and I wanted to do a painting challenge that I knew I was going to enjoy. And two, they don't take me as long to create, so it is much more likely I'm going to be able to stick to this for the long term. These little paintings are all going to be 2 by 2 inch square, and I'm painting them onto oil painting paper. This is a really great option for me because I can cut it down to size and I get a lot of paintings out of just one sheet of oil painting paper. It's also really useful if you're wanting to do something on a super small scale rather than trying to find teeny tiny canvases to suit your needs. Obviously, all of these things can be modified. If you decide you would like to do a similar painting challenge, you can change the mediums that you use, the materials, the scale that you work at to suit you. I would say that the main things to remember are you want this to be enjoyable, so choosing a medium that you really like working with would probably be a bonus. And also, you want it to be achievable. So, I'm painting in miniature in part because I like it, but also because I know I can do it within a short time frame. So even if I were to get another job, I should be able to consistently do this. You don't necessarily have to paint on a miniature scale, but bear that in mind when you're thinking about setting up a challenge for yourself, at what size you could realistically paint or draw at that you are going to be able to do on a regular basis, even when things get really busy. And the final aspect of this challenge is that it's being done on a weekly basis. I wanted to do weekly as opposed to daily because I just feel like that is obviously way more realistic, especially if I get another job alongside this. I want to still be able to keep up to this painting challenge, but I also want to be able to keep up to the painting challenge if my other side of the art business gets busy as well. Like if I have commissions to work on or if I have other original paintings that I want to do, I still want to be able to do this in the background. And I think setting up a nice weekly task of doing something like this, that feels like a really nice relaxed way of doing this challenge. I don't want to feel stressed by this. I don't want to worry about having to find the time for it every week. That is not the point. The vibe this year is chilling out and relaxing with painting. And to do that, you don't want to be feeling stressed about having to paint on a really, really regular basis that you can't possibly keep up with. Doing a weekly painting, I feel like I'm going to be able to enjoy the process a lot more. I am going to take my time, choose a suitable time of week to do the painting, put on a podcast, make myself a cup of tea, maybe sit in my pajamas, have a nice snack, and just sit and enjoy painting. And I want to be able to look forward to it. And I think doing it on a weekly basis is going to mean I really get to enjoy that painting process.
All right, so as promised, here are the other paintings in the series so far. So this is the Robin, which was number 1, and I will put photos on screen of these because I wanted to do this so you can see the scale, but this is not the best way of viewing them. So that was Robin from week number 1, and then last week I did this field fair painting of a lovely winter visitor. And obviously this week we have had the tiny blue tip painting. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of my first video of the year, or very almost the end. There was one thing I wanted to mention before I go. But first, thank you very much for watching. If you've made it this far in the video, then thank you for sticking around and watching all the way through. It's very much appreciated. Let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, give a like if you liked the video. The thing that I wanted to mention is that I am thinking of potentially doing some painting tutorials on Patreon this year. They will probably not be the tiny paintings that I've done today, because for this challenge I want that to be a nice, relaxing, not always filmed process, because you know sometimes recording a video of the painting kind of takes you out of the moment a little bit. But my idea was to still work on a small scale, but maybe do individual wildlife paintings without a background, but just looking at the subject. That's the idea. We're in very vague idea phase at the moment, but that was the plan, of one small seasonal wildlife painting. What do we think about that? Obviously, Patreon is a paid for platform, so it's not going to be something that everybody would be interested in. But if you have any thoughts on that, if you would be interested in something like that, please let me know in the comments, because it will help me decide how I might take that forward. But anyway, now I think we're at the end of the video. So thanks. I never know how to wrap these up, but thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Happy New Year to you all, and I will see you next time.